4K's Edutainment is a platform to promote social work profession and practice from the Philippines and around the world. 4K's Edutainment is a platform to promote social work profession and practice from the Philippines and around the world. Case Edutainment is a platform to promote social work profession and practice from the Philippines and around the world. 4K's Edutainment is a platform to promote social work profession and practice from the Philippines and around the world. Case Edutainment is a platform to promote social work profession and practice from the Philippines and around the world. 4K's Edutainment is a platform to promote social work profession and practice from the Philippines and around the world. Case Edutainment is a platform to promote social work profession and practice from the Philippines and around the world. 4K's Edutainment is a platform to promote social work profession and practice from the Philippines and around the world. 4K's Edutainment is a platform to promote social work profession and practice from the Philippines and around the world. 4K's Edutainment is a platform to promote social work profession and practice from the Philippines and around the world. 4K's Edutainment is a platform to promote social work profession and practice from the Philippines and around the world. 4K's Edutainment is a platform to promote social work profession and practice from the Philippines and around the world. 4K's at kwentuhan, meron pang kantahan, kasiyahan at tawanan, dagdag na kaalaman. Kamustahan at kwentuhan, meron pang kantahan, kasiyahan at tawanan, dagdag na kaalaman. Sa 4Days FB YouTube channel, sinusubaybayan ang gagawang panlipunan ay matututunan. Inspirasyon ng mamamayan. Kung nais mong matutupad, makinig ka lagi sa amin. Kung gusto mo ng kasayahan, ika'y amin hahandugan. May kwentuhan ng kaalaman, may kantahan at kasiyahan. May kwentuhan ng kaalaman, may kantahan at kasiyahan. Ang 4Days FB Live ay maaasahan mong tunay. Dagdag na alaman, kantahan at kasiyahan. Luzon, Visayas at Mindanao napapakinggan. Kapuso't kapamilya sa dako ng mundo. May pintuhan ng kaalaman, may kantahan at kasiyahan. 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 Kung nais mong matutupad, makinig ka lagi sa amin.
Alright, good evening, good evening. Alright, magandang gabi po sa ating lahat. Luzon, Visayas at Mindanao. Live na naman ho tayo ngayong gabi sa atin pong programa, ang atin pong 4K, ang kwentuhan ng kaalaman, kantahan at kasiyahan. Alright. Okay, mintras na ang atin pong panauhin or ang atin pong Kuya Jess ay nag-aayos ng kanyang ano tawag dyan, yung kanyang monitor, ay atin munang bibigyan ng pansin ang mga pagbati, no, sa atin pong mga kaibigan, mga taga-subaybay sa ating 4K, no? It seems that marami tayong mga nag-aabang ngayon dahil ang pag-uusapan natin ay patungkol sa international, no? International social work education and practice. Of course, with our guest, no? A foreign guest, and he is also a social worker like us. Of course, we will welcome him later. All right. So, meantime, allow us to introduce our co-host, Sir Jespar. Sir Jespar, good evening. All right.
Check lang. May audio, may
Mukhang
video.
wala pang audio ang Sir Jespar sa ngayon. So, all right. Okay. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Narinig ka?
Yes, sir.
Narinig ba?
Yes, sir. Naririnig. All right. So, okay. Now, batiin ko muna itong mga fellow social workers and development workers sa screen. And right now, we have 260 plus viewers from various field of social work sitting around the world. And also, we have here from the live Facebook, we have more than 30 plus viewers right now. And it seems that continuously increasing ang atin pong mga taga-subaybay across community. All right. And of course, we will extend our greetings to our Philippine Association of Social Workers Incorporated, all social workers of the Philippines. Good evening to all of you. And of course, I'd like also to greet our fellow social workers from the academe, no? The National Association of Social Workers of the Philippines, and also our social workers from medical setting, from the corporate social work, corporate social responsibilities, and of course our social workers from Association of Local Social Welfare and Development Office. Ito yung mga ALSODOPI, ha? Magandang gabi sa inyong lahat. And also sa atin pong mga kasamang social workers from ano pa mga nakalimutan natin. All right, yung mga kasamahan nating social workers from Association of Child Caring Agencies of the Philippines. Good evening to all of you, and mabuhay po ang bawat isa, no? And also our social workers from what is this? Social workers from National Council for Social Development. Thank you very much for tuning in. And likewise, social workers from Area-Based Standards Network. Social workers from DOH League, and social workers from our department, the social workers of Association of DSWD Social Workers Incorporated across the regional offices nationwide of the Philippines. And also, greetings to the social workers from what is this? BS, Bachelor of Science in Social Work. First year, Social Work 1A. Kay shout out, Aida Ampaso Omar. Alright? And of course, greetings to Samantha Noel Trosio. Good evening to all of you. And also, greetings sa mga social workers na nanonood. Si Gerson Kapada Unihog. Sino pa ito? Cassandra Yabo. Moner Masya. Jason. Emeline Dagsaan, napakadami ho ng ating viewers right now. And on my other screen, we have, 478 viewers. All right. Thank you very much. All right. And also, likewise, greetings to all. No? Miss Purita Palo is watching, and also James Suko, no? James Suko, social work students, and J. Schwab, junior social workers of the Philippines. And hello to Mr. Exxon Sosmirano. Ay, magaling din itong Sir Hexon, ha? Mahusay ito si Sir Exxon. Oh. Good evening to all the social workers dyan sa Department of, Dolim nga ba ito? O University of the Philippines. Sir Exxon, soon you will be guesting also in this platform. Alright, live from Euphemia Robles, dyan sa Cotabato. And hi to the social workers from New Zealand. They are tuning in right now. Pinoy social workers in New Zealand. To our social workers sa Greece, thank you very much for watching. And Korea. We have also social workers from... thank you very much. Thank you. And please share this to our viewers in Australia and from the United States, especially dyan sa Michigan, no? Michigan and California. Thank you very much for tuning in. Nagpapabati lang, kumusta na daw po. And advance happy anniversary, no? Happy alumni homecoming to Bicol University this coming April 29. All right? April 29. Don't forget, be your social workers. Please, see you there sa Albay Astrodome. Alright. So, right now, after all those greetings, mamaya naman ang iba, no? Kasi masyado nang marami sa listahan. And, alright, mag-commercial break muna tayo dahil hindi pa ho natatapos ang COVID.
Kaibigan, huwag ka na munang lumabas ng inyong bahay. Maliban na lang kung bibili ng pagkain o may emergency. Tandaan ang mga sumusunod. Kung kailangang lumabas ng bahay, magsuot ng mask. Siguruhing may 1 metro ang layo sa ibang tao. Magdala lagi ng alcohol o alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Huwag hawakan ang iyong mukha. Sa wastong pag-iingat, ang virus hindi kakalat. COVID-19, kayang-kaya nating tapusin. Kaibigan.
Kaibigan daw. COVID, hindi pa natatapos ito. Of course, COVID hindi pa natatapos, but we can do it if we are together in this fight to end this COVID-19 pandemic. Alright? Alright. So this time, I will welcome our co-host, Sir Jespar. Sir Jespar? Sir Jess?
Yes, sir.
Alright. Kindly, yun, no?
Okay.
Alright. Okay. So, how are you, Sir Jess? How are you, Sir Jess?
Good. I'm just... Good evening to everybody. I'm just have challenges with my internet access, so I borrowed an iPad.
Alright.
Hindi ako makakonect eh. Can you...
Sir Jess, we have 588 viewers right now plus 40 plus viewers sa Facebook. So, it seems that they are interested in our topic tonight.
Outside.
Huh? Yeah. So,
I'm outside Metro Manila.
yeah, outside Metro Manila and
Naririnig
other...
ba?
yes, naririnig. And other countries of the world. No? And we have so many junior social workers in our Facebook Live right now. And, of course, practitioners from both overall the country. No? Okay. So, of course, this time I will introduce very short introduction to our guest tonight. And he is also our colleague, fellow social worker from the Indonesia. And he is right now the president of Indonesian Professional Social Workers Association. And also, before that or prior to that, he was engaged in so many development projects in various countries and managing big ticket projects in Asia Pacific. And likewise, he studied here in the Philippines, Kuya Jess, no?
Good.
From the University of the Philippines, Diliman, Quezon City, taking up his master's in social work sa University of the Philippines. At hindi pa nakontento, Kuya Jess, no? He studied also PhD or doctorate degree here at the University of the Philippines, diyan sa UN Sipag, UP, NSipag. And of course, may mga kabatch siya dito sa Pilipinas. I think he knows well our Undersecretary of DSWD, Yusek Cheche Cabrera, no?
Okay,
And also, hindi ito pwedeng ibenta dito sa Pilipinas because he knows how to speak and how to talk our language, a Filipino language. So maybe baka mag-usap na lang tayo mamaya ng
Very
Tagalog.
good.
Wag na tayo mag-usap sa English. Baka hindi tayo maintindihan. So better we have this language, Filipino language, since he is with us right now. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow social workers, let's welcome Dr. Pujionas. Sir, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, good
Can
evening.
you hear me?
Yes, you are now live and we can hear you right now, sir. Of course, please greet your fellow social workers in Indonesia and to all your friends there, association and so forth. Greet your 32,000 plus social workers, if I'm not mistaken. Go ahead, sir.
That's correct. Right. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening. Blessed to us all. Ricky, today is a big day in Indonesia. This is Idul Fitri. This is like Christmas in the Philippines. So it's really a happy day. So with that, warm greetings to my fellow social workers in the Philippines, throughout the world, and in Indonesia. Greetings of solidarity from me to you, and we are all together in this. I'm truly looking forward to this conversation. Over to you, Ricky.
All right, very nice. Thank you very much, sir. Dr. Pujionas. All right, so, sir, before we proceed to the main discussion, of course, can you please introduce briefly your country? What is Indonesia? How, or for our viewers, so that how many population or anything about Indonesia?
Right. Ricky, may I call you Ricky?
Yes, no problem, sir.
Okay. Ricky Pare.
Pare.
Pareko.
All right.
And Sir Jess.
Mm.
Look, Indonesia is so near to the Philippines. We are sharing border, and yet we are so apart that we don't know one another. On that note, Indonesia is not different from the Philippines, except that everything is perhaps larger. We have 17,000 islands. We have 600 spoken languages, 270 million population, right? So everything is big in Indonesia. We declared our independence in 1945 from the Dutch colonialism after 350 years of living under the yoke of the colonialism. And then we progressed from there with a lot of struggle through the communism, through the developmentalism, and now we are going through the digital transformation, not different from any other country in Southeast Asia. In terms of social work and social workers, our history is slightly different from yours. Our profession was introduced by the United Nations in early 60s. This is as part of the developmental technical assistance to Indonesia. Unlike the Philippines has a long history of social work because you have a lot of missionaries and others, but Indonesia is slightly different. We are the largest Muslim population in the world, right? And with that, we have a lot of Islamic cultural heritage, but we also have thriving other religions, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, and others. And they live with their respective cultures in Indonesia. Perhaps that's good for a start. Ricky, over to you.
All right. Thank you very much for at least tuning in. At least providing us inputs or a quick tour about your country in Indonesia. And if I and Kuya Jasper will visit you there in Indonesia. So what is the best place that you will bring us in Indonesia?
Well, it's depend really whether you want to have fun, or you want to learn, or you want to progress your profession, or all of those. Right? The answer could be different. This variable really depends. Depending naman ito ang gusto natin. Ha? If you if you want to have fun, I will have to take you to somewhere like Bali and Raja Ampat. All of those are really prime diving sites, nightlife, a cultural heritage, and all that packed into one. If you'd like to go to the education heritage in Indonesia, I should like to recommend one of the cities in Java, Yogyakarta city. It has the oldest universities, just like the UP and the like. But if you are here to progress your profession, inevitably the capital remains to be the one. But that's being said, though, interestingly, we are in the process of transferring our capital, Ricky. Mm-hmm. The good old Jakarta, almost like Quiapo. It's huge and packed with people. So the government has decided to move this to Kalimantan. Kalimantan is one of the largest islands of the world that reportedly has no geological hazard in it. Oh, it's a very stable place. It's very wide, it's a rainforest and all that. So it's a pristine place. So if you ever come to Indonesia in about 3 or 5 years, suggest you probably will go to Kalimantan instead of Jakarta. But until then, if you come to Jakarta, then you will be my brother, and you'll probably have the best time in your life.
All right. So, did you listen to that?
Yes. Yes, I have to warn you. I have to warn you. Mm. While in the Philippines, you have all kind of pleasure in a liquid form. Mm-hmm. I'm afraid Indonesia will be a dry country for you. There is no lambanok, there is no gin, there is no rum. So you most probably be having party with coconut water and Sprite and Coca-Cola with no alcohol. I'm sorry for that.
So that is, Kuya Jess and I will become hungry for water.
I know. That's going to be a dry season for you.
Anyway.
But look, if I may call Kuya Jess also, Kuya Jess and Kuya Ricky, I think what happened, our neighborly living gets so closer now with ASEAN and all. We're virtually sharing a house. So I will not be surprised that in the coming months, you and I will be meeting more often under the ASEAN roof and on the ASEAN platform. Inshallah. God permit it will happen.
All right. Okay. So, thank you very much. At least we have at least knowledge or inputs or insights about that kind of situation in Indonesia. But before we proceed, Kuya Jess, maybe we can request Dr. Pugi to tell us something about his background before he enters into this current position. Sir?
Okay.
Ricky.
Yes.
Kuya Jess, sige.
Sige, Kuya Jess. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Sir Jess.
Dr. Pugi. Selamat malam. Saya nama Jess. Indonesia is close to my heart because I've worked in Indonesia in Aceh. Yes.
Oh, really?
So welcome
Okay.
to this 4Ks and greetings for your celebration of Eid Mubarak. So yes, happy celebration of Eid Mubarak. So
Thank
I
you.
know a little bit. Saya berbicara Indonesia, bahasa Indonesia sedikit sedikit.
All right. Let me, Ricky, let me translate to Filipino. Huh?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Sabi kay Kuya Jess, marunong akong magbasa Indonesia, pero konti-konti lang daw.
Okay ba? Ayos.
Okay na?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. We have close ties now because of this 4Ks.
Yes.
And Indonesia is a very, very interesting place. And if you have 17,000 areas, we have 1,700
700.
plus.
Yes.
Yeah, 700 plus. So a lot of interesting things about Indonesian culture, about Indonesian food, and also about Indonesian social work practice. That's what we're going to talk about.
All right.
Okay.
Precisely. Well,
Yes.
as requested by Kuya Ricky, let me introduce very, very quickly on a very personal account. He was asking what has happened to my life before I became a social worker.
Yes.
Well, I would say that like anyone, like every one of us, we never really planned to be social worker, right? My life was proceeded as it was. I never planned to be one. But it so happened that I came from a small town. I was not born in the capital. I come from, maybe in the Philippines, I would have come from Paler, you know. It's equivalent to Paler. It's really far away from capital. And I took up vocational school of social work. Believe it or not, there is a high school level vocational school of social work with the consideration that when I graduated, I would very quickly get into the work market, right? Because my parents could not imagine that they would have to finance my school. So it so happened that I was graduated the best graduate of the vocational school. So I was given a privilege to proceed to the State College of Social Work that belongs to the government. Bagus, you said. So from there, my life then rolled into this College of Social Work that belongs to the Department of Social Welfare, and I took the bachelor degree there. And again, because I was sort of mabait naman ikaw ang estudyante, no? So I graduated best again. It so happened. So I was given the chance to proceed to the masteral degree. But on my first year of the master's degree, there was a refugee crisis in Southeast Asia. And they opened a position for social worker. So I applied, and I was on the first year of master course, as you can imagine. And my competitors would be full-blown, full-fledged professional and teachers and whatnot. But, you know, I accept my charm and all of this thing, and sip and palusut and all that. To cut a long story short, I got the position. So, Kuya Ricky, from there, at the age of 24, I became a social worker in the refugee camp in a part of Indonesia. And my career actually took off from there. I work in that camp in the outer island of Indonesia. And my counterpart would be social workers, Filipino and international social workers in Bataan and in Palawan.
Bataan and Palawan.
Yeah, those are the places where they have Vietnamese and Indo-Chinese refugees. So I work very closely with them. When refugees from my side was processed to transfer to the U.S., for example, they have to take up cultural and language orientation in Bataan. So inevitably, I would send my clients to my counterpart in Bataan. And not long after that, I transferred to Hong Kong, right, to become international social worker. And you know what? I was working with an international social service organization that is based in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
So my colleagues are all Filipino.
Mm-hmm.
And together with my esteemed colleague, Mr. Stephen Mansi of Community and Family Services Indonesia,
Mm-hmm.
I work with social workers from the Philippines and other countries in Hong Kong. At some point, at the age of 27, I was a program manager working with 50 social workers from throughout the world, providing social services under the leadership of Mr. Stephen Mansi of Community and Family Services Indonesia, International, sorry. So there you go. From there, Kuya Ricky. And then I shifted to covering the whole Southeast Asia to introduce social work profession to Vietnam and to other countries, right? And in that process, we engaged with consultants from the University of the Philippines, like Professor Evelina Pangalangan.
All right.
Those were one of our consultants. And then Madam Cappadocia from the Disability Commission of the Philippines, and many others.
Mm-hmm.
So in the process, Kuya Ricky, they asked me, Pugi, you are doing such an important work with refugees, introducing profession and so on. By the way, what is your qualification? And I said, I have a Bachelor of Social Work from Indonesia. And they said, sayang naman. They said, sayang naman. You are doing an important work. Perhaps you need to have more education. So they introduced me to the University of the Philippines. That was the beginning of my love affair with the Philippines and with the UP. Sabi ko sa kanya, I said to them, okay, let me try to do this in 1 year. Let's take a master's degree and, while I'm working. But at the end, that was about 8 to 10 years, my career with the UN and the international NGO. And I gave up my career in favor of education in the UP.
Oh.
That was a big choice. I let go my career, and then I embarked on the UP study. And I was the ASEAN scholar, as well as the UP president scholar.
Wow.
In the UP. So I live out of scholarship, living at the International Center in UP in Palaran, at the back part of the campus, and so on. Anyway, so when I completed my master's, Ricky, I was waiting for the Mapamarsa, for the graduation. I sit in at the public administration at the NCPAC. And fortunately, my grade was pretty good that they allowed me to proceed without going through any selection. Just go forward and completed the study in about 2 years and a half at the NCPAC. So that was my short story. From there, Ricky, I proceed with my career with the UN, work in the refugee crisis in Timor-Leste. If you recall, there was a war in Timor. And then from there, I moved to ASEAN and then working in disaster management and humanitarian response in different parts of the world, right? In Dominica, in Myanmar, in Bangladesh, and also at headquarters in Geneva and in New York. And my last posting was in Bangkok with the UN Commission in Bangkok for about 6 years. And then I decided to go home to Indonesia and become what I am now. That's my life in a nutshell in 5 minutes. Over to you, Ricky.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing those professional journey from being a social worker, and up to taking up masters at the University of the Philippines and taking up a doctorate degree. And from there, going back to your country to practice the profession in ASEAN and UN organizations. All right. Was it difficult for you to give up the practice because you got that scholar at the University of the Philippines?
I think, Ricky, I think this struggle must be familiar to many of the professionals. You know, when you engage in social work, you are doing something that really makes a difference in people's life, right? I was working with children who sail across the ocean without their parents. I worked with women who were survivors of sexual assault throughout the piracy in South China Sea. I work with people who are emotionally wounded after war. All of this, and humanizing the refugee camp. All of these were important work that make changes in people's lives. And helping to introduce profession, for example. These are big things. When I was facing a choice, should I continue this important work or should I go to university instead? That dilemma is so difficult. I tried to reconcile the two lives together for about 6 months, right? I had my office in Manila at the UN Avenue, and then I had to travel to UP Diliman every afternoon using, at that time, there was a AC bus, second-hand AC bus from Japan, and then sometimes by jeepney, sometimes by taxi. At the end, Kuyariki, it didn't work because I was so captivated by the UP. Take note, at that time in Indonesia, we were still living under the undeclared military martial law in Indonesia, where there was no academic freedom, there is no freedom of thinking in Indonesia. In the Philippines, I got offered scholarship from Canada, from the US, and I chose the Philippines deliberately because Philippines is so similar with Indonesia. Our people speak it the same thing, but you have the democratic realm of thinking. When I came to the UP, I was told I could research about anything. I could write about anything as long as I can back it up with data. A life, an academic life in social work study that I could not fathom could happen in Indonesia at that time. So I was so captivated. I was fascinated and I was so immersed in it. At the end, I decided I have to let go my career in favor of learning from the Philippines on social work.
All right. So,
Over to you, Kuya.
all right. So, have you heard that? Did you hear the experiences of our guest tonight? So, that is a very, very interesting experiences. Giving up his career to take up social work. No? So, talagang guys, students, viewers coming from various countries and students here in Facebook from College of Cagayan de Oro City. And thank you very much for tuning in. And please take note, you will learn more when we return.
Kaibigan, huwag ka na munang lumabas ng inyong bahay, maliban na lang kung bibili ng pagkain o may emergency. Tandaan ang mga sumusunod. Kung kailangang lumabas ng bahay, magsuot ng mask. Siguruhing may 1 metro ang layo sa ibang tao. Magdala lagi ng alcohol o alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Huwag hawakan ang iyong mukha. Sa wastong pag-iingat, ang virus hindi kakalat. COVID-19, kayang-kaya nating tapusin.
All right. So, okay, COVID-19 is still with us, and we can fight this if we're together. All right. So this time, our guest is Dr. Pugiano, our fellow social workers from Indonesia, and he's telling us about his journey in social work, studying at UP, and taking up his journey for a doctorate degree. By the way, Kuya Jess, are you there? Kuya Jess? All right. Kuya Jess is still not around, I think.
Sir.
All right. Okay. Can you please open your
Can you hear
video?
me?
Yes, we hear you. All right. Can you please open your video, sir? All right.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you, sir. We hear you. All right. Yes, sir. Go ahead, please. It's your turn right
I
now.
heard that
Okay.
I, I heard Dr. Puji about I heard, thank you very much, Pak Puji, about your initial sharing. It's very interesting to know about your passion for social work. And we are happy that you were able to experience studying at UP and also your freedom to do your work through UP. So, this is very interesting to learn from you. So my basic question is, what is the most memorable opportunity with your time while at the University of the Philippines? Over.
Right. Kuya Jess, when I was in the Philippines, I took my field practice at the Favela Center.
Yes.
Favela, huh? Working with the old people.
Okay. Yeah.
And I learned how to manage this social service at the urban setting. And then at the national office, I took my field practice with the Directorate of Disability with Director Fermin at the time, right? And I'm working very closely with Director Cappadocia on the other side. But also out of that, I learned a lot from the field exposure as well. So I went to Baybay, I went to Baler, I went to Southern Leyte and many other places. So one thing that's the most memorable to me is the relevance of social work profession to our life in Southeast Asia. Kuya Jess, in my observation, and I'm pretty old now, I'm very old. And in my observation,
No, you're not.
hindi naman, hindi naman talaga ito eh. But out of all professions that I know, social work is the only one that explicitly committing itself to human rights. The only one, not even law, not sociology, not psychology. Social work is making explicit declaration of commitment to human rights.
Yeah.
And out of that one, in the Philippines, I learned how that human rights pages expand into the appreciation to diversity and the place in the Philippines.
Yes.
And I went to Mindanao, and where the Islam was there. I went to many places where diversity was respected. Political aside, of course, in the politics they play it out, but in ordinary people's life in the Philippines, the diversity was appreciated, and therefore social work was and has been and continue to be an inclusive profession. I have seen where social workers in the Philippines never give up on respecting people. In favela, no matter how deprived the elderly was, he was very poor, he was unattended, he was on the street. But when they admitted this person to favela center, there's always hope to improve their life.
Yeah.
Right? So out of that one, Kuya Jess, I learned so much and I brought it back to Indonesia. As I said, because we are so similar. So I was very impressed that the lesson of life and what I learned in campus actually merged that formed me as a mature social worker. Over to you, Kuya Jess.
So thank you, Pa Puji, about that sharing. So my second question would be, how do you now apply about the significant learning from the Philippines to your current work and also your influence as the president of the Social Work Association now of Indonesia? And congratulations, I learned that you're newly elected president in Indonesia. Mabuhay.
Salamat po.
Yes, congratulations.
I was elected about 4 months ago. Kuya Jess,
Yes.
the dimensions that I brought home and apply in Indonesia. One, as I said repeatedly, we are so similar. We live in a mosaic of culture, of beliefs and conviction, ethnicity, and all that. And we are so similar. So I brought that home. And for the last 20 years, throughout my career, throughout the world, I have been very proudly saying that we come from very vastly different backgrounds. Okay? Number two, in terms of the freedom of thinking, of exploring the uncharted ground, what I learned in the Philippines, you know, in UP, Piaget, one of the methods that they taught me in Diliman was through case studies. Textbook is one thing, but the teachers challenged us to look at case studies, real life. In the case of Pinatubo, they brought people in and asked a question and then look at it from a variety of dimensions, from different theories and so on. That's what I brought in back to Indonesia, the richness of the analysis, the freedom of the thinking, you know, the liberty of the learned, the sanctity of the academic world. That was very precious to me. It's not always easy in Indonesia, but that's at least the spirit that I have with me. Now, as I was elected as the president now, I am bringing the Indonesian Association to be more open-minded. There are 3 tracks that are going on parallel. One is to reconfirm that profession of social work is a noble, at the same time, novel profession. It's a profession that never gets outdated. It never gets replaced by a computer, ever. That's one. It's an optimism, right? Number 2, I convince myself and my colleagues that social work is a solution to our problems. It has always been, but more than ever, now in this age, where the alienation and atomization of individuals in the urban living, not only urbanization, people at the provincia, they also live as urban, right? Social work seems to be a solution to this, right? The third one that I bring to the association now is the professionalization. All of those good intentions, the charity, the solidarity, and all this is not enough. We need to bring this to the higher ground through the professionalization. My colleagues in the Philippines, you might have taken professionalism for granted because you already have it. In my country, social work profession has been acknowledged only 2 years ago. Only 2 years ago. Well, not two. The late of 2019. Only barely 3 years ago. So professionalization is a struggle, right? It's a journey in itself. We have now the legislation that acknowledges the role of social work as a profession. But we still yet to develop implementing regulations, right? Our organization, professional organization, will have to develop mechanism and structure for certification, registration, and licensing. We are yet to develop our capacity. So, Pujionas, for you guys in the Philippines, lucky you have the profession settled already. Ito naman, sa Indonesia, talagang, hirap ng hirap ito ang buhay, ang profession, because we're just starting. Pero hindi naman nag-give up, no? They're always optimistic, and I want to learn much more from the Philippines. Over to you, Kuya.
Yeah, thank you, Pugi. And this is a very interesting opportunity that Philippine social workers and Indonesian social workers can come up with a collaborative effort to really support each other in terms of how we can build up a more stronger competency in terms of social work practice. I'm very much interested about your recognition that in the Philippines, human rights is a very basic
Mhm.
context of practice.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you mentioned about competency on case management is really very important.
Yes.
All doing in the Philippines, we're trying to really strengthen the case management practice for social workers. And this is an important part of the skills competency of Filipino social workers as well as Indonesian social workers. So perhaps
Mhm.
we can explore opportunity on how we can really support each other to better enhance the skills competency of social workers in our two countries. Over to you, Sir Ricky. Kuya Ricky, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Sir Jess and Kuya Puji. Ah, let us use the word Kuya. We are all brothers here. So it's Kuya. All right, Kuya Puji and Kuya Jess, for information, we have so many social work students watching us right now from Lourdes College of Cagayan de Oro and other schools in the Philippines. And of course, they are interested so much to learn something about social work practice in Indonesia. And maybe briefly, can you tell something about the social work education in your country and how do students in Indonesia pursue the social work profession?
Sure. Thank you, Kuya. So, to my younger and aspired social workers throughout the Philippines and all over the world, in the case of Indonesia, we have 31 higher education that offer social work courses, 31 throughout the country. And at the lower layer, we have the high school vocational education for social workers. And they would graduate to become assistant social workers in 27 schools throughout Indonesia. Now, as they graduated, well, I mean, the higher education in Indonesia were separated into two categories. The first one is the one that really pursue the vocational competence as social worker. The other one is academic pursuit through the so-called the science of social welfare, right? So there's two tracks. It goes two different ways, pursuing different things, but they're converging into social work profession, so to speak. We have the bachelor degree, definitely. We have a master's, but also we also have the doctoral degree courses on social work now. When someone completed their education, the higher education, then they would receive at the same time the professional certification, meaning they become social worker in a name, right? But then they have to pursue the professional education program for about a year and a half. This is not master's degree, by the way. This is the
Baccalaureate
professional
degree.
education.
All right.
No, the first part is baccalaureate. That's the 4 years. When you're graduated from the UP as a PSW, that's what we have in Indonesia. You cannot immediately become social worker. You must undertake additional 18 months supervised practice in the academic world, in the professional education program. And when you completed that, you take the national certification, like the fourth exam in the Philippines, right? And only then you can then obtain the certificate and you become social worker. Or if you already have number of years professional experience after you graduated from the higher education, you could then draw that professional experience and credited them to become equivalent to the professional education. So that's what happened. Reportedly, Kuyariki, we have about 35 to 40,000 social workers out there in Indonesia. Many of them alive. Some of them died already. Okay, but when I do this, maybe there are around 40,000. But what already in our record is about 6,500 social workers. And when I ask them to confirm their existence, I have about 1,350 social workers. So the numbers is 1,350, 6,500, and 40,000. Now it's up to us how to reach out to them and convince them to be part of the association. In our organization, Kuyariki and Kuyajes, we have three major pillars. One is social work for children and families.
Mm-hmm.
Two is the Indonesian Association of Social Workers in Narcotics and Addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And third, Social Work Association in Medical Social Workers. And now we are discussing the prospect of the incorporation of social work in corporate, including the social corporate responsibility, as well as social work in disaster management and humanitarian affairs.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then the third one is social work in justice system. These are three established and three emerging practices in Indonesia right now. People are working with the government agencies, but many of them work with the non-government entities, NGOs and others, and some are in the corporations and health field.
Mm-hmm.
Kuyariki, over to you.
All right. Thank you very much, sir, for telling us about the social work education. And we are interested much when it comes to after their graduation, what or in your country, where can we find social workers practicing in Indonesia? Are there
Right.
social workers practicing in medical or other humanitarian fields? Can you share with us?
Yes. Yeah. A bigger number of social workers, new graduated social workers who work with the Ministry of Social Affairs.
Mm-hmm.
We have huge poverty eradication, poverty alleviation program, which they employ social workers at the front line to work with outreach community workers and others,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And we also have in the ministry the Division for Social Rehabilitation and Community Empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's similar to DSWD, right?
Yes.
Both at the national office, but most of them are being employed at the local government of a unit.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the Philippines, Indonesia is also have the local autonomy policy. Those are the ones that work at the government sector. Many of social workers are working in NGO sectors. Disaster risk management is one, and then child protection, justice systems, and many others. There are also who work at the medical sectors,
Mm-hmm.
from geriatric to a newest field, a subfield that emerged in Indonesia, social work for the transplantation.
Mm-hmm.
So before patient had gone through medical transplantation, they have to go through the counseling and case intervention by social worker. And then there are also my colleagues who are working at the corporate sector, working at the environmental and social governance, that's the ESG.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably the newly emerging, well, not new, but it has been a couple of years now. Yet another version of the corporate social responsibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these are the areas they're working with. And there are also big number of social workers working at the drugs and addiction. And very, very recently, Kuyariki, I also learned that we have quite a number of my colleagues working at the terrorist management field.
Mm-hmm.
Not working necessarily with the terrorists themselves, but with the families and people around the suspected or convicted terrorists, but also working in the eradication and de-radicalization. These are very, very vibrant fields of social work in Indonesia. And I hope one day when we open the ASEAN workforce market,
Yes.
some of the Filipino colleagues might like to work in Indonesia, but you have to compete with me. It will not be an easy lunch for you. We have to compete on that. A friendly competition nonetheless. Kuya Ricky, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. So you mentioned that I think 2 months ago we had this called ASEAN meeting with other countries and many social workers from other ASEAN or members of ASEAN region participated because what we discussed is all about the ASEAN yung workforce and you were there. But before we talk on that, perhaps we know that the same with our country, social workers are everywhere, practicing in various settings, like also in Indonesia, social workers are everywhere as well. But you mentioned a while ago that before practicing your profession or your career in Indonesia, you've been your field work at the Jose Pavilla and also work for women, right? So, can you tell something about your programs for women or our elderly sector and other programs for vulnerable community in your country?
Right. I guess I could start with the elderly. The work with the elderly, the social work practice with the elderly in Indonesia. There are three different kind of situations, Kuya Ricky. One is the conventional, traditional elderly at a rural area, which largely they're quite independent in a way. They live with their families with proper care, proper respect, and then growing old honorably. And then the second situation are in the urban or semi-urban situation, in which elderly tend to be left out, right? They become dependent on services to a certain degree. And then the third one are elderly that have special needs, right? That they're being old is compounded by other complications that are health and the social situation and so on, that they require specific care. And that could be community-based, that could also be institutional-based. So there's the work in the geriatric field in Indonesia. Now, the other area, women and children, this is probably similar to the Philippines, are women and children who live with and live as victim of violence, right? Abuse, both in the country and abroad, sexually exploited, right? And this track of problems that we deal with women and children. On the other hand, we talk about the development, where we would like to make sure that women and children have equal opportunity to development, to participate and enjoy the fruit of development at the same time. But lately, Kuya Ricky, I think you would agree with me, there's new breed of problems that are breeding in our lives, which is the digital transformation.
Yes.
All right?
Yes,
So that women and children are exposed and proven to be already victimized by the digital transformation, who I believe are created by men by and large.
Yeah.
That then put women and children in vulnerable position, or more vulnerable in that matter. And children in particular, they could not distinguish really the online living, which one is the truth, which one is not, which one is correct, which one is wrong. All these values are not diffused, and social workers are in difficult position because we have to receive cases that already happened. So our challenge in Indonesia, and I think you will share this passion, Kuya Ricky,
Yes.
we need to embark as social workers to understand the online living, how to make sure that women and children enjoy the progress of the technology and information and communication, but at the same time that they are being protected from the harm that will put them in danger.
Yeah.
this is a challenge, the juggling, the two things, like anything in life. But this is very urgent because it happens already in a massive way.
Yeah, that's correct. And the concern of child exploitation or children exploitation in various parts of the world are really continuously increasing or growing. And in our country, that is also our preferential or giving preferential attention on how we combat, on how we can prevent or protect our children as well as our women when it comes to various forms of abuses. And you were mentioning that the social workers should uh, be involved too much and provide great interventions. So, in response to the growing concern in Indonesia, sir, how do you manage this the victims or in terms of protecting these exploited children or abused women?
Well, I guess, Kuya Ricky, like any other social problem in our living, there's a spectrum of intervention that social workers are engaged with in Indonesia. In one end, we are dealing with already full-blown cases where children were victimized or women victimized by the dangers, hazards at the digital living, right? We're looking at women being trafficked everywhere. We have children raped and all of those things, and children get addicted to gadgets and all that. But we're also embarking now nationally. We are launching child protection online training for social workers. We would like to have our social workers at the front line to be able to give interventions, prevention, and also better management of children and women in the digital living. The third track is that we're influencing the policy. Our association is part of the national committee to put together a roadmap on child online protection to 2030. So we brought in the social work perspective into the policy and so on. Now, underlying all of these three dimensions, we are also advocating now to make sure that at the local level, within the local government units, there will be a service point where social workers will be formally recruited and placed to tackle with children and women's protection issues. Now, this is an early day, Kuya Ricky. We're still formulating our thoughts. We're having conversation with government, and we try to push this so that we want to make sure that social workers are there on the site to help community manage the digital living, but also not neglecting the conventional abuse and exploitation for women and children. I hope that encapsulates in brief what we are trying to do in Indonesia. Over to you, Kuya.
Yes, Kuya. So, what is important is we have programs and interventions for these vulnerable sectors that we are helping, because that is our primary duty as a social worker and practitioner. And of course, okay, may I just ask if there are organized men organization that is also advocating for protection of these vulnerable sectors in your country?
Yes, we do have a group of what we call as champions, men who we elevated themselves and gave them some sort of attribute that they have become champions. The real men do not hit women. Some sort of like that, right? We do have that movement. We do have also our Islamic religious personalities who would represent the advocacy for protection of women and children. We do all that as well.
Yeah.
But I believe that, Kuya, we need to have more conversation like this. My practitioner's colleague and your practitioner's colleague, we should have more conversation, and we should learn from one another. The problem is similar. The solution probably is similar. You might have initiated somewhere. We could learn from that.
Yeah.
We might have initiated something that might have been failed, so that you will not repeat our failure, because failure is lesson as well. There you go. So as I said, Kuya, I think Indonesia and Philippines should hold hands together,
Yeah.
and we should talk somewhere in ASEAN, no?
Good.
Because look, out of 11 countries in ASEAN, I think Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia might have rather advanced social work. The others are still growing, so we do have a chance. I think you and I need to work together. We need to open the market somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Yes, agree.
Right.
Yes, agree. All right. Going back to the men organization, because I'm interested in that field, because as a social worker, I am also advocate for the protection of women, children, and other vulnerable sectors. In fact, we have this organization of men in the Philippines. We call this MOVE, no? MOVE, which mean Men Opposed to Violence Everywhere. Men Opposed to Violence Everywhere. And that is an organization of proactive male who are supporting the advocacies of women. And we did organized in LGUs throughout the Philippines, as well as in other line agencies, government agencies, NGOs, universities, and academe, so that we can expound or we can increase the concern, the programs for the protection of this vulnerable sector, especially children and women. So right now we have a solid organization of men. So perhaps in Indonesia, you have also organized men, and then maybe sooner we can converge our advocacies.
You know, Kuya Ricky, in the Philippines, you have the Born Again.
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
As a movement, as one of the Christian movement, right? In Indonesia, we have what we call the New Men movement.
Yes.
So, how do you say in Tagalog? It's like a lalaki ang pabagbago or something like that.
Yeah.
We try to introduce the concept of a new man, the new breed of man,
Yes.
of maleness. These are the ones who are aware of the violence against women, exploitation and discrimination. And the new men are a men who are aware, who are enlightened, and in fact, as you said, oppose the unfavorable treatment for women. Because only then they make themselves, men, become honorable.
Yes. All right. Okay. So, thank you very much for at least we did our information and knowledge on social work. But we will return after this commercial break.
Kaibigan, huwag ka na munang lumabas ng inyong bahay, maliban na lang kung bibili ng pagkain o may emergency. Tandaan ang mga sumusunod. Kung kailangang lumabas ng bahay, magsuot ng mask. Siguruhing may 1 metro ang layo sa ibang tao. Magdala lagi ng alcohol o alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Huwag hawakan ang iyong mukha. Sa wastong pag-iingat, ang virus hindi kakalat. COVID-19, kayang-kaya nating tapusin.
All right. Thank you very much. Still, we have so many viewers right now, students and practitioners from various settings of social work and also other countries. And with us here is our fellow social worker from Indonesia, the president of Indonesian Professional Association of Social Workers, Dr. Pujiono, our Kuya in Indonesia. All right, Kuya. So, we are now at the segment still with education. All right. So, I will ask you because Kuya Jess, I think, has a problem of internet connectivity. and perhaps I will ask you something about our students in Indonesia, because a while ago I asked you to tell us the social work education, how do they enroll and practice, and this time when the students graduated from social work education in Indonesia, so where do they start practicing social work? Is it in the local government unit, or the academy, or maybe in the military?
Okay. Well, let's see. In the government, we have positions that are open for social work profession, right? So newly graduate social workers could apply for this post for junior social workers with the government offices, both at the national office and at the local government unit. Because in every government unit, as it's similar to the Philippines, there is social welfare, social services office, right? And they would have position open for social workers. That's one track of work. The second one are social workers who work at the non-government level.
Mm-hmm.
Many of them started as the NGO workers. They may
Yes.
not be called social worker as such. Many of them are young researchers. Some are community development, Some are called as child protection officer, and so on, right? The post itself may have not been attributed as social work professions, right? I think it's understandable. We are working towards bringing more and more executives to acknowledge the presence of social work. And then there are also colleagues who work at the corporate side, right? Usually they're working with labor relations, okay? And then staff welfare, many other branches, human resources. Again, they may have not been necessarily be called as social workers, right? And then there are people who work at the medical side, medical setting. And then those who work at the justice system. At the justice system, we are sharing the field with those who are working at the correctional scale education. These are schools which curriculum really teach the student about correctional science, right? And social workers is one of the allied professions in it. In the medical side, we work with psychologists and psychiatrists in supporting the patients in their reaction to treatment, as well as coping with the life changes as implicated by the medical conditions before, during, and after the treatment. And then with the addiction and narcotics, our social workers, the new graduates, they could work with the National Narcotics Bureau, like in the Philippines, as community workers. Some of them are called counselors, not social workers. But many more of them working with social services, non-government or government, delivering the community-based rehabilitation services for the narcotics and addicts. So they're broad, really wide open field in that regard. And that brings us the challenge to the association as well as opportunity. How can we rope them up to become part of our family? Because if we don't do that, Kuyariki, they would be so comfortable to become counselor that they would forget their identity as social workers. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Or they would be so comfortable to become corporate community development workers that one day they would stop calling themselves social workers. And we are losing. We are depriving ourselves from their experience and lessons. So we try to do this. We try to advocate. But that being said, though, for new graduates in Indonesia, I have to say, there are not many, or at least not enough, field of work, employment, that has a clear name of social work. Many of those are really social services. We are increasingly advocating for those posts to be called social work settings. But that's probably a long journey, a very exciting journey, and we will never give up. So to
Yes.
speak.
Yeah. So thank you for responding that question. And all right. So I know that in other countries like us and other countries in the world, those students, there is a ratio between the male social workers and the female social workers.
Mhm.
And perhaps you will agree with me that more women are taking up social workers and few men. So in your country, can you tell us the ratio? Is it 10%, 50%, 40%?
No, no. Well, first, I would like to start by confirming what you said, Kuyariki, that in the field of social work, there seems to be an inclination that women are more attuned to this profession.
Mm.
Some people stipulated, or at least they speculated that because social work is about caring,
Mm-hmm.
right? Solving problems, so women are more attuned to it.
Mm.
I may not agree to that,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the reality is there are more women
Mm-hmm.
in this profession than men.
Mm.
Perhaps in my country, not so much, not so sharp. I would like to believe that it's 60 to 40 right now.
Mm-hmm.
But don't hold my word on it. I don't have the real number, Kuya.
Mm-hmm.
But my hunch is, at least in the classroom that I've seen, there will be more women.
Mm.
But there are also not so wide gap in general.
Uh-huh.
This is, in my mind, in the case of Indonesia, because part of the social problem that we are dealing with in Indonesia, in addition to the hardcore conventional social problems that constitute deprivation, that require hardcore social work practice, there are also huge field of community development,
Mm-hmm.
advocacy, right,
Oh.
and management and administration and whatnot that actually gender blind.
Mm-hmm.
So, and as you said earlier, Kuyariki, many or at least part of these problems would require men to be involved.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
So that persuasion alone would require from us and for us to look at the gender as something that should not limit the profession, to have the goodness of the knowledge and the spirit and dedication of its students.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So yes, the inclination will be more female than male. I think that's the reality. But I think we try to keep the balance if we can. But otherwise, even if there are more women, I'm glad. I have no problem with that. I think the world should be better run by women. Would you not agree with me?
Yes. Well, we are very lucky because we love by women in social work profession. We
At least you can say konti lang ang guwapo, di ba?
Of course, and they will be loved forever by women social workers. Right? Agree?
This is a discrimination in reverse.
Yeah, because during our time, we're only two males out of 48
My
social work
goodness.
students. Yes. Yes,
Wow,
that's
okay.
true. And
No, Indonesia is not that bad. Indonesia is, I think it's 40-60 in Indonesia.
40-60. So, but now in the Philippine experience about our students taking up social workers, many, gradually, men are getting social work profession. In fact, right now is the last board exam. I think many men, male
Okay.
social workers are into that. No? Pass the board exam for social
Kuya,
work.
maybe we need to do some special advocacy for men to join our profession.
Yes, and that is why we are we have this male social workers network in the Philippines, and yes,
Really?
we organized men. In fact, that is our website or page is at Facebook, Male Social Workers Network, and we have the group and the more than thousands of social work workers, male social workers right now in our as our members. So we started that during our Philippine Social Workers Assembly. So um, observing our fellow men attending that conference, that we are very few in the conference room, but we do not talk each other. We do not exchange information each other. So what we converse are women. So we decided. So how do we encourage men to talk to each other, men? And that's why we initiated that movement in the year 2014 or 15, I think. So from that time, we plan to have a separate, just a form of convention. I mean, conference for male social workers. But because we do not have fund, our plan still plans. And right now, is still planned. But maybe, perhaps, coming in, there will be a session or trainings exclusive for male social workers. Yes, but we are not competing with the numbers of women social workers. We are in support because we are all social workers. Kuya, di ba? So I think
Tama
you
yun,
can
tama,
you can
tama.
you can also begin, no? Or start organizing the male social workers in Indonesia so that we can have alliance of male social workers as well.
I will not be able to do that in Indonesia because we have enough male in the profession. But listen, no, I think it's important to talk about the gender balance in our profession. I think it's profoundly important that we, as I said earlier, that we are not deprived from the blind sided of a gender one way or another, right?
Yes.
So there's
yes.
men, there's male, there's female, and everything else in between. Everybody's entitled to be part of the profession.
Yeah.
By all means, let's have some more conversation about that. Yeah.
Yeah, kuya. And right now, we are still advocating for our program beneficiaries, especially in conditional cash transfer or this Pantawid program in the Philippines. We have scholars, clients supported by this program, and many of these clients are taking up social work also. And also, after their graduation, they engage practicing their profession in our DSWD and other social work field. So, nakakatuwa, kuya, that these clienteles are also sharing their what we have invested, no, and they are now sharing their education.
I would say, Kuya Ricky, I think many of my colleagues in the Philippines would be familiar with Community and Family Services International, CFSI.
Yes, CSFI.
Right. The CFSI, with Mr. Stephen Mansi as my venerated colleagues there, many of their clients in Mindanao have now become social workers because they introduce social work education as well. And there is no greater passion that could grow out of those who used to be beneficiaries, those who used to be clients, and then transform themselves to become social workers. In that way, CFSI's endeavor is really, really formidable in my mind.
Yes.
That's really a good example where recruiting clients or nurturing clients to become social workers who are dependable, who are committed and passionate about their work. Bravo to you.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So it seems that we are serious enough in advocating our profession. Yes, because we need more social workers. In fact, in the Philippines right now, we're lacking of a social work profession and many available opportunities in various organizations that they also need social workers. But we are in scarcity still of social work in the Philippines. That is why we encourage universities, academe, to open social work profession. And for the last time that we have a guest here at 4Ks, we learned that other LGUs, their university and colleges are now venturing to offer social work course in their academy. Right? So, all right, going back, you've been expert sa practitioners. I know you also been involved in disaster response and management, being a social worker, a consultant, and technical experts. So, can you can I mean, may I know how you do your own stress management or self-care? Maybe our
Mhm.
viewers now will learn from you, sir. Kuya.
Okay. Thank you, Pia. True. My long years of my career was in disaster risk management as well as humanitarian response in the different UN agencies, as I said earlier, in different parts of the world. Um, in many of the situations, in fact, I was, believe it or not, I am one of the Gawat Kalasak awardees.
Oh, really? In the Philippines?
Yes, in the Philippines,
Wow.
because of humanitarian work in Mindanao.
All right. So what's the name of that NGO?
Oh, I was with the UNHCR then,
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Of
right?
course. That is
So
part of the Office of Civil Defense yearly awarding.
I was
Yes.
working closely, working closely with the Office of Civil Defense. I was with
That's right.
ASEAN,
Mm.
and I introduced contingency planning to Office of Civil Defense and whatnot. But going back to your question, Kuya,
Right.
many of social workers are working in the area of disaster management and humanitarian.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
Mm.
because social work explicitly taking side with those members of society who are deprived,
Mm-hmm.
who suffer, right?
Mm.
Who have less.
Mm.
And therefore, we tend to venture to those segment of communities.
Mm.
And disaster events
Mm.
inevitably become a very attractive setting. Now, when I was with Community and Family Services International, CFSI, we worked very, very closely with the agenda of self-care. Because, one, we believe that an effective and efficient social workers are those who actually survive themselves, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Being exposed to violence, to human suffering, we absorb those problems. We absorb those emotions, right?
Mm.
And if we as social workers cannot manage it, then we become victims silently.
Mm.
Or sometimes we simply become victims because we survive the crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing your client die,
Mm.
seeing your community you're seeking to serve suffer from disaster,
Mm.
while you are not. You are safe in Cotabato, or you are safe in Davao, or you're safe in Manila, while your communities are suffering from flood in Bicol, for example,
Mm-hmm.
make you feel guilty.
Mm.
And this gradually will build up to become a burden that can burn you from inside,
Mm.
right? So in CFSI, I learned a lot in
Mm.
terms of self-care and helping the helpers to manage the so-called vicarious stress,
Mm.
to manage the burnout, to manage the critical incident stress debriefing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in very rare cases, post-traumatic stress disorder, when you witness something traumatic in the long run.
Mm.
So with CFSI, we in fact allocate resources, train individuals and supervisors who could handle this kind of crisis. In Timor-Leste, when I was the senior social worker there, I had special room allocated for my colleagues
Mm.
who demonstrated the symptoms and signs of stress.
Oh, really? Oh.
They may not admit it. They will be the last one to admit.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay lang, ako okay lang. Ito
Okay
walang
lang.
problema to, ha?
Yes, yes.
Right?
Usually
They don't
that
see it
is
because
those are reactions. Okay lang, walang
Exactly.
problema. Okay lang.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh.
But then, then we have that one-on-one session in some situations. But in many situations, it's a group session, really just for them to tell what kind of stress they have experienced and how they manage it and so on.
Mm.
So essentially, self-management and managing your colleagues and the importance of supervision, supportive supervision, is really, really cannot be stressed any more than I could. It's really important. And also to have among your colleagues 1, 2, or 3 people who are trained in critical stress debriefing is very important.
Yes. Oh,
Because
right.
our social workers are at the front line. You never know. When you're working in Tondo, you're working with community, there will be community violence. So before you know it, you're in the middle of it. Either witnessing people got killed or injured, or yourself got injured. One way or another will impact you. And you need to have somebody in your circle, maybe at the office, maybe in the associations themselves. Maybe you and I, Kuya, could undertake this kind of training together. Handful of people, we train them
Yes.
and give them this competence to be able to support our fellow social workers when they experience crisis, either in person or virtually through Zoom like this. With this modern communication way, we can do it, right?
Yeah.
So so 3 things. One, really to capitalize on the self-awareness principles and values in social work, so that we take care of ourselves. Number 2 is to build within the structure of services, the supervision that will then take care of our people. And the third one, to invest on specialized, technically sound individuals who are dependable and accountable to do crisis intervention and stress debriefing.
All right.
Over to you, Kuya.
Yes, Kuya. So, stress debriefing and various forms of relieving stress can help much to our social workers to release the anxieties or luggages that they have. Especially during the pandemic time, Kuya Puji. During pandemic time, social workers are busy responding to all the concerns, relief, response, and support. But I forgot to mention and ask you, what type of disasters your country are facing?
I think everything that happened in the world could happen in my country, except snow blizzard, okay, or a glacier, incident. Our country has so many. We have about 170 volcanoes, all active.
Oh, all active, 174 volcano?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you have only Mayon and Pinatubo. We have 170 of them.
All active?
All active. I'm only counting the active ones.
My goodness.
And then we have hundreds of rivers and major rivers. Like the Philippines, I think we are more than the Philippines. We are sitting at the ring of fire.
Yes.
We are sitting with a lot of faults or earthquakes. We also have a rolling terrain, so landslide is nothing stranger to us. So we do have many natural disasters in Indonesia. And increasingly, we also have disasters that are triggered by climate change, extreme weather events, as well as the interface between natural disasters and human technologies and industries. So there's a wide range of hazards in the country, not very different from the Philippines. Each of them would require specific knowledge, inevitably. But I believe that we could establish the bottom line of social work intervention. In that matter, in Indonesia, we plan to launch the Indonesian Association of Disaster and Humanitarian Social Work Association, maybe the end of next month.
Oh, that is a good plan, huh?
Yes, and in that regard, Kuya, we will be developing a practice framework.
All right.
It will start with what is the philosophy of disaster management for us? What is the ideology? Why we need to get in there as social workers?
Yes.
And what are the value system that attach to it? Second set of questions would be, what kind of knowledge do we need to do this particular task as a social workers, right? Both knowledge that emerge from the social work itself, established knowledge as well as the newly established knowledge from disaster management field that are not yet in our textbook. And then we need to clarify the purpose of our profession of embarking on disaster. How do social workers differ from civil defense? How do social workers differ from health workers?
Yes.
We need to be clear in our head what the mission that we have so that we don't do everybody's job.
Correct.
And that social work is so specific, cannot be performed by just anyone.
Yeah.
And the final question would be, what will be specific technology and skills that are required to perform this job? So we will do a national workshop to develop this framework. And on the basis of that, we will launch the association. And hopefully, we will grow in the sophistication and the completion of the framework. And we'll be excited to share it with you when it happens.
Right. That's a good initiative of putting together things together, especially social work engagement on disaster response, disaster risk reduction, and management. Because, the social work is really a wider scope when it comes to engagement. Not only taking care of a client, but we are engaged too much in the community. And when we talk about community, it's a whole system from individual, family, sectoral engagement, where social workers are always engaged in terms of interventions. But, all right, in terms of case management, how do you practice case management? I know you learned that. You learned also in the University of the Philippines about what's the proper social, implementation of social case management in individual, family, or group or community. So, in your country, how do you practice that social case management framework?
In the case of our association, Kuyariki, I have to acknowledge and credit the support of Save the Children, one of the international organizations that support the social work practice with child protection. For a couple of years before my time, have introduced and strengthened the concept of case management. This is a situation, and in many, many circumstances, where an individual or family would require services from many different branches, right? A child that are facing justice system, for example, would require psychological assessment, would require eventually vocational therapy. They might need to deal with a lawyer. They might need to deal with local authority, and so on. As you could imagine, the case is so complex, all right? And the client and their family could be overwhelmed by this different intervention. And they could simply get lost in the process, right?
Yes.
Imagine if the child have to go through and report to the court. They have to report to the police and get this letter and that and so on. This process is so enormous and so taxing emotionally and physically that they could just simply give up and lost in the process. So we are getting our social workers to be aware of this, and they assume the role of case manager, whereby they would maintain the record, the assessment with the client and people around them, agree on the range of intervention, and maintain the record and the process together with the client so that they can always check in after they complete one task. So if a child is required to report to the police, they would go to the police and draw a police record and go back and actually check in with the case manager until it comes to the next task. Psychological assessment, they will engage the psychologist, get the result, and again check in, and ever so maintain the case. That's what we have been working with our social workers. It's not perfect, Kuyariki. It's not yet perfect. This is work that is ongoing. The perfection has to go every day. So also along that line, we could have more conversation and learn from each other of how the function of social worker as case manager in cases where it involves services from so many branches. Over to you, Kuya Ricky.
Yes, Kuya. Thank you very much for informing us that case management is still applicable in various clientele group and professional setting. All right, Kuya Jess. Wow, Kuya Jess is still entering our Zoom, but connection is bad right now. But Kuya Jess, I know that you are
Yes,
there.
sir.
All right, good to see you. Okay, you're on the floor now. You can ask questions. Yes.
Pugi, sorry, sorry.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to join this conversation. This is very interesting. And I'm trying to follow up through the FB. Yeah, you're really very important uh, inputs in terms of social work practice in Indonesia. And, this is a very interesting discussion. And we know that social work practice is really very essential in helping people who are in need, because the last uh, the hope of people who really are in need are from the support or intervention of the social workers. Yeah, so that's why it's really very important to really improve the capacity of social workers in terms of doing case management. Here in the Philippines, we are moving towards forward to coming up with an integrated electronic case management system
Yes.
led by the Department of Social Welfare and Development. And we're trying to support that effort so that the social workers will be more uh, using the technology of the internet, so that case management will be more effective in terms of doing feral work. Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
I hope that this can be improved further in terms of competency, in terms of using the technology.
Mm-hmm.
And DSWD is doing the leadership on that. Yeah. So over to you, Sir Ricky.
Yes, Kuya. Thank you. Yes, DSW is still innovating for some programs, especially on electronic social case management. That was
Yeah.
tested for our Pantawid beneficiaries, and that will be expanded soon into other programs. Of course, with the support of the UNICEF, which Kuya Jaspar is within. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I think, Kuya, just very quickly,
Yeah.
I think sometime next month or so, we would like to invite you virtually like this, and for you to introduce to us how is this system working in the Philippines, so that we could learn from you. Yeah.
Oh, Kuya Jess.
Because Kuya
Yeah,
Jess,
sure.
that's a
Yeah.
calling for you. Yeah, because I think there are three layers that you're talking about. One is really the digitization,
Mm-hmm.
simply undergoing the normal social work processes,
Mm-hmm.
but we are using electronic means.
Mm-hmm.
The second is the digitalization, whereby we digitize some of the processes,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the third one is the complete digital transformation, in which we interact with people, with clients, digitally. So that progression is very, very interesting because it has something to do with personal data protection, confidentiality, the ethical framework, and many other things. And these processes are ongoing. So it will be exciting for Indonesia to learn from you while these things are still emerging, right? So that, and we could work together with UNICEF, see how it work in
Correct.
two countries together, no?
Mm.
So Kuya, just let's think about it. Sometime next month, we could continue with this conversation, yeah?
Yeah. And actually, I'm coordinating also with Ibo Astrid Dionisio. I know you.
Okay.
You know her, and she's the child protection specialist in Indonesia office. And I know
Okay.
that. Yeah. So we can get in touch. Kuya Puji. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. All right, two quick questions for Kuya Puji before we end this session. All right, the first is what are the challenges of social workers in your country? Are they supported by the government, or are your organizations are united when it comes to privileges and benefits? Can you share to us, at least we know?
Sure. Um, there is no clear answer to that question.
Mm-hmm.
But I can indicate to you that social work as a profession has been recognized only for the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, this is just really the early stage of reaffirming the role of the profession.
Mm.
That government themselves are not quite sure what to do with this new animal, right? How to treat this new profession. So this advocacy is ongoing with our own government, but there are already some signs where government acknowledge the press. There are already legal statements, for example, in justice system, that child should not be processed to the court unless accompanied by social worker. So there's an explicit statement of where social workers are required in terms of presence. But there are situations where social work related positions, I'm distinguishing it from social work positions, as I said earlier. There are certain vocations, certain jobs that are social work, but they are called something else. There are situations that, because of the so-called bureaucratic reform, some adjustment has to be made, reclassification of posts, in which social workers are on the disadvantaged side, right? Say, you used to be supervisor before, and then lately the government realized there is no such thing like supervisor. Then you need to be downgraded to become senior social worker, for example, no? This thing happened. So we and the association need to put our weight together, have conversation. I just wrote to the Ministry of Social Affairs just last week, asking to have open conversation between association and the ministry to talk about some of the critical issues. I need to speak to the minister at the eye level to talk and defend and promote social workers' career and welfare. If I cannot do that, we cannot do this business together.
Yeah.
Right? So we need to maintain, in Indonesia, we need to maintain that posture. We need to maintain that open conversation with the ministry, with the government, not only Ministry of Social Affairs, but also Ministry of State Apparatus and Bureaucratic Reform, to make sure that social work posts are being guarded, that they are assured. But as I said earlier, this is a long journey. This journey is climbing uphill. It's very slippery. It's very difficult. But somebody got to do it, and that happened to be to me. So, let's do it.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Let's do it.
The second question, Kuya, the second question is that I need to, with my colleagues, to bring that consciousness, the group consciousness of among social workers, the sense of tayo, that we are social workers, that we have pride to become social workers. As you heard me saying all of these things, I put the profession really as a noble and novel profession, as I said earlier. I want my colleagues in Indonesia to have the same perspective, and that we become one. In a short time, and I'm now in a conversation with the ministry to establish the Indonesian Association of Civil Servant Social Workers, like your association, Kuya Ricky.
Civil
Social
servants.
workers who are employed by government.
All right. Yes. Yes.
They need to come up with an association like yours, so that they have a collective position. They could protect their interests and advance their career. And from the association side, I'm very supportive. I'm looking for ways to support them and establish them as a solid group. Only when they are solid, we could have proper conversation.
Yes.
Okay? So one day I will have to invite you, Kuya Ricky, to tell us how do you run your organization. This is new organization. what are the challenges, what are the opportunities. And for all you know, one day we have to make an ASEAN Association of Civil Servant Social Workers. You will be the vice chair. I will be the chair.
Yeah.
Joke plan.
Let us,
But I think
well,
we do need to have that collective sense, even in the
Correct.
region, eventually,
Yeah.
so that we are all brothers and sisters
Yes.
in this profession. Thank you.
better to have plans for this so that
Ayun.
that is part of our united goal or united vision,
Yes.
which is solidarity of social workers around the world. Right?
Inshallah.
Yeah.
Inshallah.
Kuya Jess, mayroon kang pahabol?
Plano. Sige, plano something.
Thank you.
Some joint activities.
Yeah. So, thank you very much, Kuya Pugi, for your very, very interesting, very, very knowledgeable, and very, very
Fruitful.
timely input in terms of the practice. And just one question. Do you promote coming up with a national policy to support social workers in Indonesia?
Kuya Jess, when we speak of policy, I can mention a legislation which is
Okay.
similar to your Magna Carta,
Okay.
right? That's 2019.
Okay.
Now we are promoting in the association more conversation with government ministries. I have an outstanding appointment with the chairman of the National Narcotic Board,
Okay.
again, to advance the position of social workers. I have a request to the head of the National Family Planning Board to do the
Okay.
same.
Okay.
So we're doing all of these things. Eventually, Kuya, I think we do need to have a piece of policy across the board in the government as the derivative of the legislation. We need to have implementing regulations that are binding to all the government organizations, but also to the corporate and NGOs, not only the government, because
Yes.
we cannot only embrace the government civil servants.
Yeah.
Those who
Yes.
are not with the government are even more vulnerable to be abused and misused.
Yeah.
So we do need to embrace all of them
Mm.
in the form of a national policy, right?
Yeah.
Now, this is not in place yet, Kuya. Maybe you and I can have more conversation and build something together,
Yeah.
and we can advocate and see how far we can go.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes. Oo.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for that's an interesting plan from your side, and really have to really help each other
Correct.
so that we can have more collective efforts
That's it.
because we have a common frame
Yes.
to discuss.
Yes.
Succeedingly,
Okay.
we can talk more about the best interests of the social workers
Yeah.
in our country.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Agree.
And yes, and that's the last question before we end. This is about you, huh? If you have an inspiration message for all the social workers in the ASEAN region and the world, and in terms of education and practice, what will it be, Kuya Puji?
Okay. I believe in one sentence. That spirit would be, and we said earlier in this conversation, in many situations, social workers constitute the last straw of hope. But we could only be effective social workers if we are caring of ourselves and one another. And therefore, we need to unite. We need to build our own kind of social workers so that we can be problem solver and helpful to people we seek to serve. So the spirit is, you never be alone. Hindi ikaw naman nag-iisa daw. We are all together.
Yes. All right.
Agree.
That is very powerful word. We need to be together hindi ka nag-iisa. Walang iwanan. Tama? No one must be left behind. All right. So, I think we learned a lot, Kuya Jess, with our conversation while you are in off-camera mode or listening in via Facebook because your interconnection is maybe poor or you may be not paid with regards to your connection.
Yes.
But still, social work practice and education and experiences in Indonesia is also really inspiring. And we learned that the Philippines and Indonesia have these common systems and approaches with regards to social work, education, practice, and even application of social case management. They have more than 50,000, I think, social workers, but we do have 30,000 plus social workers in the Philippines. But still, there is a gap when it comes to opportunities and employment. So perhaps this can be worked out with regards to the Indonesia and Philippines to work together as kuya or brothers and sisters when it comes to social work profession. And Kuya Jess, your final words?
Yeah, thank you very much. Terima kasih banyak, Pak Puji. Maraming salamat po. And these opportunities really, we need to really support each other because social work practice is a caring profession. So because of the, we really have to support in terms of mental health of social work practitioners. That's why caring for carers is very important. And so that we can make a difference in the lives of the people we support and we help. So let's continue to strengthen our support to each other and continue our support to all social work practitioners, whether they are working in the government, in the CSO, in the corporate social group, and to all those who are doing case management, group work, and community organizing. So let's all support each other. Be a brother and a sister to each other, and always don't forget mental health.
Yes.
Maraming salamat. Terima kasih banyak.
All right. And to the part
you.
of the host, to our director of this show, Direct G, and of course our colleague, fellow social worker, Bok ni Camille Sanchez. Yours truly, Bok Ricky Bonao, is very thankful to the presence of our Dr. Pujiono, our fellow social work from Indonesia. And perhaps we can do partnership, Kuya Puji, with regards to other social workers who wanted to share their experiences as a social worker to connect with this program, the 4K. Kwentuhan, kaalaman, kantahan, and kasiyahan. But you miss the other part, and that is the singing part. So perhaps we will have an episode, and that is focused only on singing. All right?
Maybe we have to make it 5K.
Yes. 5K. What is?
Kantahan and the paper by kainuman.
Yes. Okay.
Agree.
Yeah, agree.
Joke
So,
plan.
when are you when is your plan to visit Philippines?
Maybe not long from now, but I agree with you. I think we could explore the possibility of the 4K program become a bilateral program with Indonesia.
All right.
From time to time, colleagues from Indonesia will be joining, and maybe later we bring other people from other countries as well, right?
All right.
Let's try to do that.
Yes,
Connect
yes.
me with colleagues from PASB and let's plan it together.
All right. Okay.
Inshallah.
Okay.
All right. So let us promote inclusivity, not exclusivity. No one must be left behind, and social work will be in your hand, in your community always. Be an inspirations. Up. All right. So this is the final song for us.
Kami ay manggagawang panglipunan, katuwang namin ang mamamayan. Sa bayang pinaglilingkuran, hangad ang tunay na kaunlaran. Saan man sulok ay umaabot, sa pangalit di natatago. Anumang tulong ay ibibigay, ang magsilbi ay walang kapantay. Karapatang pantao ay aming pinaglalaban, makamtan lamang ang tunay na katarungan. Sa bayang Pilipinas na aming minamahal, profesyon namin ay handang ialay.